Hey boys and girls, welcome back to Munro Live. We're standing in front of the Plaid. It's up on the Hoist. If we look over here to my left, you can see that we've taken off the little shields that go on underneath, mostly for pass-by noises and whatnot. And we're going to talk a little bit about what we've found so far. We're kind of like rushed here because we need to get the battery out today, and we're also going to do the rest of the draining. So far we've taken out the AC fluid, and like I say, we're going to look at this quickly, but we're not going to go into any depth, or as Cory says, platitudes. Anyhow, so we're going to look at this, and the first thing that comes up is something that Cory noticed here. This is the ankle, we used to call it the ankle breaker, but now it's the got a new name.
So it's this part right here. It's a carbon fiber reinforced plastic. We can tell by how it's shaped and formed. And the label on it actually says CF ankle catcher. So one of the primary roles of this is in pedestrian protection, you know, for when you're running through the different scenarios, because ankle catcher, it wants to have your ankle hit to flip you up onto the hood. You never want to get sucked under the car, so the strength of this is very important when you're dealing with pedestrian protection. We'll have to look and compare and contrast to other Model S's and Model X's to see if this is unique to this vehicle. But seeing a carbon fiber piece right here was one thing we noticed right off the bat. Sandy, do you want to talk about the manufacturing method for the front cradle?
Yeah, well, right here, you're looking at what used to be like near impossible, but when BMW did it on the BMW i3, once everybody found out that it was possible, everybody in the planet's doing it. So this is called an extrusion. It means basically you shove aluminum in through a gauge that gives you this outside shape, and then when it comes out, you can cut it up, and you can see that this is machined and things like that. You can cut it up, and it gives you a cross section that you can utilize and put other things together. Over here you can see these are all TIG welds, tungsten inert gas welds, and we've had some debate. I think personally that these are probably robotic, but Cory and some other guys think it might be manual. I've never been able to see anybody do anything quite as good as that. So this cradle is nice, and it supports all kinds of stuff. So why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, so with the advent of all the level 2, level 2.5, level 3 autonomous, you have to have redundancy in your critical systems. So you can see very clearly the redundant circuitry, the low voltage circuitry on the steering system. We have done a full teardown of the Model 3 and the Model Y. They're even doubling up on power supply. So you see positive, negative, and then you have twice as much wiring as you would need in a traditional car that doesn't have redundant circuitry for, you know, your ADAS system.
Yeah.
Also notice this large it's a double thick piece of metal to protect the leading edge of the battery. Oftentimes in other EVs, we see many of the connectors are exposed to the elements besides a thin plastic shield, which we showed as we just kicked this off. This is very heavily protected, and you can see that this is welded together. It goes all the way around to this outer edge right here. So this is a very robust double thickness. I believe it's an aluminum front leading edge battery protection.
We're going to probably give you a lot more detail on materials and whatnot, and that gets us right into the front suspension, which I don't know an awful lot about. The problems that were on the Model S before, this is a unique system. Instead of having a lower control arm, having this basically double system that you like. I don't know exactly the term, because really and truly it's unique.
It's called virtual ball.
Well, it's called a virtual ball, but the virtual balls that I've seen don't quite look like this. BMW is a virtual ball for pretty much everything.
Yes, this would be your tension link, because as you're driving, the force is pulling the wheel back, and this would be in tension. This would be your compression link. And we've seen some similar systems to this, but Sandy, you want to go into the quality issue that we're having?
So if you look at all of the different views that they've given on what's going on with the old Model S or what they had in the old Model S, it looks like wherever they had a ball, there was an issue. I don't exactly know what the issue is, but it showed some cracked surfaces, and in some cases the ball was completely exposed. We're going to examine this, and quite frankly, the ride and drive on a virtual ball is far superior to what you're going to find on anything else. But we want to find out maybe why things failed on some of the vehicles. My personal thought is that some purchasing agent that was maybe on the supply side or something wound up buying a cheaper material. Material makes a big difference whether or not you're going to have safety and whether you're going to have things actually work. And if you get a situation where you only see a few of these kinds of scenarios, especially on a forged part like that, it kind of begs the question, was there a material change? Was there some sort of a mistake in the materials? But we're going to look at this, and then we're going to see if we can find one that's broken or buy an old Model S and see what the differences might be. We might even go in and check to see what this material is before we move to the back of the bus here. Why don't we talk a little bit about the shock system and the air suspension system?
Yeah, so this Model S Plaid, as well as other Model S and X models, have a reservoir hanging off of the shock. I know, Zach, can you come around and see here? And you can see the air suspension all the way up top. So this is really important for when you're going into launch mode. The front of the car will tip way down. And for our ride and drive, Sandy, our big road trip, 3,500 miles, we set this into comfort mode. So not only are they able to adjust the damping of the shock, and they have this reservoir here to account for the extra fluid, but the stiffness of the shock as well on the ride height. This is not unique to the Model S Plaid. This is common in many high-end vehicles, BMWs, Land Rovers, but a typical system, we see it right there. Something that's not, it's the first time I've seen it, the two bolts holding the brake caliper to the knuckle go through the caliper in this direction, in the direction of travel. Usually you see an ear right here, an ear off of the caliper, and then they'll bolt through that ear. Very unique. Sandy, have you seen that? I'm gonna prove me wrong in the comments, but I want to look harder. Now, granted, this is a fixed caliper, so when you have a sliding caliper, you typically want to secure in that direction to allow for all your mating.
Puts it into double shear.
But that is the first I've seen that. Now, I'll have to look back at the previous Model S's and X's that we have analyzed, but you learn something new every day, and that's something new that I didn't see.
That's one of the reasons we look at this car, because every day we see something new. So right here is the battery. That's what's going to be coming out next. We want to do that before we start letting the fluids out. It works out better. It's not as messy. Let's go to the back end here and have a look at. Well, you might as well just keep right on go with the suspension. This suspension right here, the rear suspension, is very similar.
Yeah. So if you think of the Model 3 and the Model Y, a lower cost vehicle, more steel. Here you see primarily aluminum. So the subframe is a high pressure aluminum die casting, and you can see all of these ejector pins. This is a very large casting, similar to about the size of the Giga casting or Mega casting.
Yeah, Mega casting.
It's very big.
But it probably doesn't weigh as much because you've got a lot of this area here is like fresh air.
Now, this one will be unique to the Model S Plaid because it's mounting to this massive double motor rear unit. The lower links are forged aluminum, but there is an adjustable front link here, and you can see that you can adjust that for most likely for toe. It's on the leading edge.
Then if you spin around, you can see the what do you call it, reservoir for the, I'm not sure, is that the shock or the air? That's a shock.
It looks like an air suspension valve, but
Yeah.
when we pull the air suspension off, we'll dive into more
go into
detail.
more detail.
Now, there's been other people who have had their Model S Plaid up on a lift, and you've seen this shot, but where Sandy comes in and where Munro comes in, we're pointing out the minute details, particularly in manufacturing and quality, that may be missed by other people who have this vehicle. So we first noticed something that Elon loves to do. He loves to eliminate the need for brackets by integrating as much as possible into an existing part. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mounting provisions for the lower shield are integrated into this large die casting. It would be so much easier to eliminate all those for the person developing the mold for that casting and mount on a bracket similar to you see here. So this is not ideal, but there could have been
there's no other way of making it happen. So where I knew that there would be some sharp-eyed guy on this video that was going to say, well, what about that one? You can't make this one work because you've got to access the electric motor above it. So by putting in these 2 screws and whatnot, if it would have been us designing, it isn't 2 screws. It's a locator and a locator. So this is the kind of thing that we would probably want to do. This holds it from moving back and forth, and this one holds it in position, as it were. So even though this is a bracket, and I really don't like brackets, this is a much better way of going than what we would normally see on a product. So the question is, what could they do that would have been different? How about that mounted to this? If we could have had this locating feature mounted to the electric motor, if it was like the only thing that we could make happen, that would be a good idea. Just having a stud, or I don't know whether that's this. Yeah. So just a nut basically would be tapped into the electric motor.
So the rear drive unit itself shares a lot of core common architectural components with the Model 3 and the Model Y. So if you can see this pump, so these electric pumps right here are to circulate the fluid through the stator and through the gearbox. And this looks identical to what we've seen in all Model 3s and Model Ys that we've already torn down. One thing we did notice, there's 3. There's one on the left side, one on the right side, and one in the center. So you have 3 pumps. So it'll be really interesting when we tear down this rear unit to show all of our viewers how they're repurposing some of the core components that may take a lot to develop, like these plate heat exchangers and these fluid pumps. Also, the inverters, because of the width of this unit, the inverters are not on the end caps of the motors like we've seen on the Model 3 and the Model Y. They're shifted to the rear. And you can see this plug right here. There's 2 bolts right here. You remove the 2 bolts, and then you can access the 3 holes to disconnect the inverter to the stator. This is a common access port that we've seen on the 3 and the Y, but I'm guessing that the shape of the circuit board for the rear inverter is most likely either similar or identical to the Model 3 and the Model Y.
So let's just look a little bit on the cabling and whatnot and how they put this thing in place. So over here you can see there's really 2 small holes, and if you remember when we looked at the cabling associated with all the other electric vehicles that we've taken apart, this is it. That's the only exposed cabling that we can find, at least right now. If you look at the other cars, there's plenty of orange underneath each one of them. And I think that this is a good example of what Tesla does best, utilizing and making most efficient use of whatever it is that they need to put in place. So this cabling, to me, is the hallmark, if you like, of Tesla.
And there was a little bit of trade-off because this is slightly longer than the cabling that we see for the 3 and the Y, just by looking at it. And we'll have to compare and contrast. But on the 3 and the Y, because it's on the edge right here, they're able to route up to about this point. So it looks like it's maybe 20% longer, but still very, very good.
So the other thing that's cool too is the way they've got surrounds, little aids for manufacturing. So a single screw and a couple of wire ties makes it so that the operator doesn't have any issues putting things into place. They're just up and in. And then again, you see the casting here is giving us the guidance that we need in order to put that thing in quickly. Now the other thing is, see, we're going, this is the gearbox, that's the electric motor.
Right here, so, the motor, yeah.
So right here, you can see that they've screwed into, I think, yes, into a little boss that was cast in place. So doing the same thing here would have been a cool idea, and then you get rid of this bracket and the nuts and everything else.
Yeah, yeah. The reason why they probably didn't attach to this is going to be torquing back and forth with
could
under
be.
load.
Yeah.
Because see, I think it's isolated. This is hard mounted. Oh, no, it's.
I think it's going to be fine. It could have been fine, but you know what?
Yeah.
Second guessing is a lot easier than doing it right the first time. I mean, you're under a lot of pressure when you're designing a product.
I do
and
like
this is kind of like teeny.
Yeah, I do like this piece of aluminum right here is there as a protection. If you ran over something like a brick and it came up and it hit this, you're not going to break this plastic off. I saw that on this side and on that side, even though there's a piece of plastic sticking out there, but not over here. I really do like that. And
yeah, I think that's about it. I think that's about it. Oh, no, you already got that. Yeah, so anyway, this is a little look. We call these things Hoist reviews, and a little look at what we've seen so far. Stay tuned. There's going to be a lot more. This car has got tons of exciting new engineering ideas, and we're really looking forward to having you guys along for the ride. And so we'll see you, and keep those cards and letters coming in. Actually, I guess it's comments. We do want to find out what you're thinking and what you're interested in. Everything is read when it comes across, and so if you want to know anything, or if you've got something you'd like to share with us, please let us know. The other thing that I need to do, as I say before, we really need more people. If you're an engineer or a mechanic or a costing guy, we could really use you. We really need some help because our company is exploding in size. Anyway, thanks. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, and if you're interested, email us your resume at hr@leandesign.com.
And there you go. Now you got everything. Thanks so much for watching. We'll be seeing you. Bye.